Hi everyone, and welcome to Sensory Moments. This is a podcast where we talk all things sensory. Today we have an exponent in design thinking, consumer and sensory insights, innovation, design strategy, semiotics, behavior science, and predictability. And with more than 15 years of experience in wellness and health products, please welcome Shilpa. Hi, Shilpa.
Hi Shruti and hi Sandeep. Good morning to you all.
Good morning, Shilpa. Great to have you on board for this.
My pleasure.
So, Shilpa, usually we start with like a small introduction of the guest. So, would you like to tell us where did you start and were you introduced where you are today?
Shruti, so because I'm talking to a Gen Z, I would like to, make it as crisp as possible because I do understand, or that is at least the perception we have with respect to, how crisp and short you would like to hear about people. I started my journey way back in the mid 90s, 1995, 96. So when I started, I'm academically informed and then I completed my business management. I was recruited into LACME from campus, and that is where my journey, as far as the entire world of FMCG, cosmetics, beauty care product started. I was almost called a nerd because, in spite of being a gold medalist, I choose to take a role and a job offer in a FMCG cosmetic and not taking the offering or the offers that have come from pharma industry. Yeah, so I think the madness started right from there. I was in Lakme. I did my role in Lakme, and then I was with Hindustan Unilever. From there, my journey was in Lumiere, and then for a very long time of my career, I have been with Marico Limited. All my roles have been around product development, innovations, and earlier it was called as non-technical evaluation, but now it is kind of become more structured. We call it CTI, sensory, and things like that. So I think a lot of my journey happened across these organizations and these categories.
Can I ask a Gen Z question?
Of
I know I'm
course.
not Gen Z by any means, but how can you not be a nerd where I hear design thinking, sensory insights, behavioral science, semiotics? Obviously, you have to be a nerd.
Yeah, I guess so. Now, when in retrospect, when you look at those things, I think it is only that kind of a streak of nerdness or madness which made you want to look at all these, chaos. Because design thinking itself is about being comfortable in chaos.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I think it started from there.
Okay. And what was your first exposure to sensory, to food sounds, and all? Because coming from pharma, MBA to this would have been quite a jump.
Yeah, it was a jump, but Sandeep, so I will tell you some things which kind of have. So now, when you look back at things, there are some things which are imprints, and now when we're sitting and talking about it, actually, uh, so we used to have practicals when I was doing my pharmacy graduation. And one of the subjects was pharmaceutics, where we had to formulate medicine formulations.
Yeah.
And so when we were doing, so there was to be formulations for pediatrics, and pediatric formulations is something which and many often see how difficult it is to administer a simple cough syrup also to a child, right? And if you can imagine, of course things have changed a lot now, but imagine those scenarios when the child is caught, the hands and legs are caught, and you're pushing the syrup through the throat of the child and all such things. So it used to always be one of the questions of how can you actually make a delightful medicine for a child, right? And I think questions like this were always in my head, that if it is a drug, it has to be taken, and can you make it the most sensorially palatable kind of a formulation. And that really could be the goalpost. And I think thoughts of how sensory would be and what role it plays were kind of seeding in at that point in time. And that was how I kind of started reading, getting exposures, and things like that. So I think that awareness and actually becoming a lot more observant about such kind of aspects of sensory and experiences seeded in from those times. And then I was fortunate to also, get roles and opportunities where I could kind of, take this ahead much more in depth.
In fact, we did have on our podcast somebody worked on Croson, and I was telling her and I how thankful as a parent I am for having Croson, which has strawberry flavor, because otherwise I'm sure that my daughter would never have taken that medicine ever.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So you talked about design thinking. How do you describe design thinking to somebody like me? Actually, not the right example, but who doesn't know what design thinking is, and how do you use it in the work that you do?
So, when I started my entire building understanding of this concept of design thinking, which came up about in late 1980s or early 1990s, right? So, it was a structured way of understanding a certain domain, design thinking. So the interests naturally happened because the role that I was carrying was always in innovations, in creations. The teams with whom I worked were marketing teams, the formulation teams were constantly into designing or creating something new. Right. So when you create something new, the word design becomes a lot more relevant. So as I was, going through the subject, somewhere at one point, it was almost a realization that uh, it is something which cannot be restricted only to a role or only to an innovation. And then when you started to see with that lens around in life, you almost feel that design thinking is so much a part of your regular life, uh, in your professional life, in your day to day life, in your personal life. The only difference being, maybe when we are at work, we make it more structured, we make it more PowerPoint, more visual. But I think if you ask today, and that's maybe the insider in me is speaking, if you see a lady or a woman who's running a house, right? If you see a mother who is raising a child, if you see a father who is probably planning for a child's education, there is an element of design thinking in every aspect of it. And I'll leave you with these four words, which to me are, the pillars of design thinking, and it's there in all published information and the textbooks of design thinking. It starts with empathy, and then there is a beautiful Venn diagram of three circles, which describes as desirability, feasibility, and viability. Right. So even if I decide, or so when I go into a role of say a wife or a spouse or a mother, and if I have to make if I have to make dinner for evening, right? I would actually have these four words thought about. Maybe not in a structured manner, but intuitively, I would probably think in some way of empathy. I would then see what would probably be the right meal for the evening. I would see the feasibility. I would check into the refrigerator to check the feasibility. I would check the viability in terms of how much quantity will it be sufficient and stuff like that. So I think this entire aspect, it just looked simple, yet it was so powerful. And I felt that it would be such a sustainable thing, and it is not. It would probably not be just one of the trend that would come and go. but it was something that would stay for a very, very long time as far as innovations are concerned. And it is so much which could transcend across various categories, various sizes of business, various type of cohorts. I just found it very fascinating, and I just kept on digging more. I formally completed my a diploma with MIT in design thinking, and the journey of learning just started going ahead.
So you made design thinking sound one. It sound very cool. I think the Gen Z here will second that it sounded very cool. And you also made it sound that we all use it. So I can after this I can go and tell my wife that she uses design thinking, and she'll be very happy that she
Yes,
uses design thinking.
yes, yes. I think
Uh,
the best things in life are very simple.
uh, so, what was your first exposure to the sensorial part or sensory, and where did that happen? Any stories around it? Anything which you want to share with us? That
So I will leave aside the one which I kind of mentioned earlier, which was during my academic years. But when I actually started my role, I was in formulation, right?
okay,
So yeah, so I started my journey in color cosmetics as a formulator. A part of my role also required me to be, to partner with the quality control team. And in those times, roles were a little flexy, and we also, as the generation that we used to kind of take different roles.
Yeah.
So there was not a very black and white line between only this role and only that role. Right, so you would pick up a little bit, work with QC teams, go in the factory, work with the production teams, work with the formulation teams, and things like that. So in my early years, I was fortunate also to get a lot of mentoring from very senior leaders in Lakme at that point in time, who also mentored me into doing so. There is a technical evaluation of formulation. Maybe I take you a little bit into the R&D of a company, right? So there are formulations which get made, and then there is a technical assessment of those formulations, right?
yeah,
So those would be, say, your viscosity, and your, so the instruments are taking those reading. Okay. Then there's an area which is called as a non-technical evaluation. Okay, so non-technical, the word or what we call this as a CTI today is that in between assessment, between a pure technical and a pure perception, which is your consumer response, right? So this is a space which is called as a sensory space, as what we call it today, where you actually start assessing the behaviors of product on substrates, right? So my introduction to that area in my actual role started with evaluation of lot of lipsticks, color cosmetics, nail enamels and makeups, lot of color evaluations, because color cosmetics is a world of colors. And later in my role in HUL, with lot of skincare, hair care products, and further extended into the categories that Marico today. And I think, as again, I would say that I consider myself fortunate to have done this CTI roles and sensory understanding for almost all categories of FMCG. um, Say personal care, hair care, beauty care, fab care, uh, household care products, um oral care, deodorants, and many such. And each one of them has been so fascinating. Each one of them has been so, throwing up such lovely insights, and which is why which is why I've always felt that it should be called as sensory insights and consumer insights, so that the relevance and the importance of sensory that it plays in any innovation or in any NPD is so huge, right? So that is where I kind of bucket it as sensory insights and consumer insights.
In fact, as an aside, I will let Shruti carry on the conversation, ask more questions. Maybe some of us, a kind of a webinar or something, and get together and and get some of these Gen Zs and we old people at the other side and discuss common thinking and misconceptions of Gen Z and what Gen Z thinks about us. I think that would make an interesting talk to have, or a conversation around coffee where we get three, four of us and talk, because I'm actually teaching a few courses and I'm unfortunately teaching it to Gen Z. I found people who are committed, who are hardworking, who remind me not of me because I was very lazy when I was their age, but who really work very hard and are committed and are still Gen Z. So why when can we get them to react and all? But yeah, that's an aside to the topic that we're discussing today. So Shruti, questions?
Yeah, so thank you for giving all the insights, Shilpa. That was really nice. So and it was really refreshing because like growing up, you see that for us there are like you have a certain course for a certain job and everything. But you when you said that, yeah, I have worked in everything. Like I worked in QC and all, it just shows that uh, like whether whatever you have studied, like you can excel if you have passion, you can um, work through it. So I just wanted to ask that like as you say, you have worked with a lot of FMCG products, and it's completely different from food, like normal sensory, like food sensory. So how does like the panel, what is like, how do you set up the panel? Like, because our viewers already have a bit confused with the whole sensory process. So when it comes to these products, how does the whole panel runs? Like, how do you train the panelists? How do you select the panelists? Like, how does it?
So in my Marico experience, Shruti, I have anchored all the sensory CTI work for the foods business as well, right? So Saffola is our flagship brand, and we have had a lot of innovation successes in Saffola. As you would know, say Saffola Masala Oats has been our flagship, and it has created a category by itself with the launch. And at some point in time, maybe if I get an opportunity, I would share that. That story with you. It's many of our leaders have also spoken about it. So that was one. So as far as the panel is concerned, and so to me, sensory world today is understood only as panels, right? And there to me, and even our practitioners of sensory, uh, kind of put that as the first thing, panels. Or with due respect to everything, please don't mind me being very candid. uh, but I really I'm passionate about this domain and this the value that this area of work gives to innovations, and somehow therefore it starts seeming very complex,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
But to me, and how I do, and when I work with my teams and with our partners, for us it's first very important to understand and very well define the objective, right?
Yeah.
Once that north pole is set, then the setting up of panels, the training of panels becomes lot more simpler. And my second learning and more from experience is that, and that is what I got to also learn when I came to when I came to Marico. Earlier I was with Unilever, is, and in coming times that would also be one of the evolution that probably this area of work would have to do, is being a little flexible and evolving, if these are the right words, adapting to what really is required versus running a very classical way of doing things. And I think this comes also because in the place that where I have had my longest stint in my career, believes in a lot of entrepreneurship way of looking at things, right? And when we are doing this, nowhere is there is any scope for compromise on robustness, compromise on any kind of data, which might impact output and therefore, misdirect any decision. Absolutely not. It is just about how we define the objective clearly, how do we visualize the output, and what it is going to enable a decision, therefore, right? With that in mind is how you start constructing training the panels, right? Having said that, to answer to the question which you asked in terms of how do you go about training, yes, we follow the norms in terms of whatever has been defined in the sensory science as a subject, in terms of training, in terms of how you kind of sensitize. But probably what I would look is how much of that is required for the objective that I'm trying to achieve. And I'll tell you how it differs. So there is a classical way of doing things, but probably when I'm a FMCG organization, I am into a finished product assessment, yeah, versus maybe a flavor house who is constructing a flavor, or a perfume house, because I anchor perfume development as well in CPI, because they are making perfumes. So their degree of sensory panel acuity uh, would be slightly more stringent or slightly more sensitive versus probably what I would require, right?
Yeah.
And the I don't know whether I'm able to, and please ask me, Shruti. Right, so that is how we go about constructing the panel. So if my so I'll give you example of masala oats. So if it is Safola masala oats, my endeavor would be to see that masala in the construct of the flavor name that is going to be on the pack,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? So my design of the panel would be to therefore define the attributes.
Yeah.
Or so when I say taste attributes, could be in terms of say spiciness, saltiness, umami, sweetness, sourness, right? So within that also there would be certain kind of a hierarchy in terms of spice, and within spice probably it would be red chili spice, black pepper spice, ginger spice, as per what it is going supposed to be delivering.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I would build the acuity or the scale in a manner as per that, and not put a general ranking for spiciness,
Yeah.
right? So if it is I'm just giving an example. If it is supposed to be delivering on say a tandoori masala,
Mm-hmm.
right, so that means my red chili and my garam masala would have to be my first landing taste attributes, right? So that would be my critical training once, and probably a little broader scale for maybe a black pepper or maybe a cardamom in that,
Right.
right? So I think it is very customized and very trying to see the objective and the output.
Mhm. Yeah. So, the thing that you said now, it remind me of the previous podcast. Like while as you are a innovator yourself, like what is like the psyche of a person? Like how does a psychological, like if you want to make something like convince something, how does psychology plays part? Like, do you think in a way that yeah, because I think it was Supriya. Yeah, it was in Supriya's podcast where she said that there was a clicking sound with one of the laundry detergent and the clicking sound of the product. It made the consumer think that, yeah, this is going to be, proper, this is going to be keep my laundry detergent proper, and then I want to use it. So is does psyche play a role while planning all of this?
Of course, it's absolutely right, and so there are these different areas, right? So this is a sensory panel evaluation, what we spoke about. The aspect which you are bringing, and it's a very critical aspect in the sensory, is how can sensory be used to work on consumer psychology,
Yeah.
right? And it's a very powerful way of looking, because there's a treasure built in these product attributes, and they can become
Shilpa, your voice
sensory
is
moments. What podcast is, these
breaking.
sensory moments are.
Yeah, your voice is breaking now. So
Yeah, am I audible?
yeah, now you're audible.
Is it okay
Yeah, yeah,
now?
yeah.
Okay. You
Okay.
just have to go
So
back on.
shall you, do you want me to repeat anything?
Yeah,
Yes,
just the previous line would be fine.
Yeah, okay. So I think the point which you raised, and the mention of the clicking of the cap, yeah, it's definitely psyche plays a huge role. So we spoke about the setting up of panels. What we are now addressing is how can the different sensory moments,
Mhm.
right? And what you have rightly, put as a title of the podcast, how the various sensory moments can be used as points whereby you can build in a lot of brand value, a lot of consumer assurance. And the point which you mentioned about the cap is how the
Yeah,
consumer feels assured about that element of packaging working. Yeah, so the trust building and the durability, the quality of the product, all is getting built in with that little sensory experience that that person is getting. So definitely it has a huge impact. One of the example that comes to my mind is the use of sound as a sensory,
hmm,
right? One example is what you gave.
yeah,
If you remember the brand Intel,
yeah,
right? So the Intel brand has a wave, that's little jingle sound as a brand, almost the brand,
yeah,
right? And if you remember any of that, such, so that's a power of, so people have not necessarily remember Intel, but they remember uh, that powerful way. And that's how brand can also use sensory as as a face to their brand, right?
right.
But definitely it has a huge impact on the psyche.
So, Shilpa, with my next question is that with the recent trends which are coming right now, like especially in the beauty department, like if, for example, if you take like Korean skin, or uh, people are like especially the female population is much more concentrated towards clear skin, or a skin which is like dewy. So how do you compete or even like keep up with the new ideas while maintaining the original product? Like how do you do it?
So a lot of so if you say from a sensory point, and because we are addressing sensory as an area, uh, a lot of good work can happen when you use sensory as an area to do a lot of product benchmarking, right? So there are constantly new products that are getting coming in the market. The more and more understanding of these products that you get by way of assessing their attributes, right? The more and more there will be sensory insights for us to therefore see which is the place. And there are methods, and all of us do those methods in terms of your preference mapping, the clusters that come. There are certain clusters which very clearly show that majority of the brands are in that space, right?
Yeah.
Linking those back to what is the formulations, the type of formulations, what are your business aspirations, which space do you want to be, do you want to be in that cluster but a little different, or you see a space which is very different. Yeah, that would depend on the kind of aspirations the brand has, the kind of equity that the brand is able to carry. There are some brands which are based on claims of scientific ingredients. There are some brands which are based on which would take claims basis the natural ingredients, right? So depending on which positioning the brand would probably want to be at, these attributes or these elements, as we called as and that is why we call these things as product design elements. Yeah, so where in the beginning, the formulation team, the CTI, the sensory team, and the brand team, the marketing teams, they come together, and it's almost like the innovation design is getting kind of worked upon. Okay, basis which you design a product, uh, and you define the attributes that you probably want in your product. You want it to be faster absorbing, you want it to be slightly less faster absorbing, how much of glass skin, how much of degree of gloss, right? Retentivity of the gloss, would you want it to be sweat proof, would you, because while we say Korean,
Mhm.
right, when you are adapting it for a India setup
Yeah.
or an India ecosystem and the environment, uh, it could be a very different Korean.
Mhm.
So that entire sensory insights and building those thresholds in the initial part of design becomes very important, becomes very important. And therefore I feel increasingly the role that sensory, the area of sensory and the sensory insights can play for any category, be it foods, be it wellness, be it personal care, beauty, is enormous.
Absolutely. Very well put, Shilpa. Thank you. Sandeep, would you like to
Yeah.
ask?
It means what work you are doing and what work, say, even some extent, Tata Consumer is doing. And you guys are creating new to market categories. Sorry, if I'm not, am I audible?
Yeah, now, yeah.
Yeah. So you're creating new to market categories because when I work on, say Malkist, there would be a biscuit like that somewhere in the world, and I can import the standards and do my panel validation against that. But when you work on Saffola oats or on some dals, lentils, which have never been tested before by a panel, how difficult it is to use Sensi for innovation and how differently means you already talked design thinking. So we're going back to that. How much of a left-brained person do you have, oh sorry, right-brained person do you have to actually lead innovation when it is a new category, completely new category? Because there's no benchmark available. You know, we work on benchmark. We're saying validate your panel. Okay, I mean we get this request. We want your panel to validate our category. Okay, send us 3 samples and we'll run the products and we'll send you the results and then you can compare. But when you do it the first time and then you have to refine it to get the best product out in the market, there's no benchmark. Then what happens?
Yes, it's a very valid question, and that is going to be increasingly happening in this world. And because we are always in the role of assessment and checkers, if you know, if I can call, because so new categories will come because because everyone is striving for differentiation, right? So that is one. The other thing is a lot of there's one this entire trend of lot of fusions, right? So these words have become now a way of life. We call it hybrids, we call it fusions. Our occasions and occasions of eating, consumption have also become previously they were a little more tightly compartmentalized. Right now they have got a little blurred in that sense. So there also you see a lot of hybrids. We want to have brunch. We want to have you know high teas, which are expected to, therefore if I can skip my dinner, uh, and stuff like this. So the entire your circadian rhythm, if what we call, is also becoming a lot more segmented. Um, right, and the world is going to be, is anyway, we are all moving in that way. And Shruti, the future would also kind of see, because there are a lot many things that today we are trying to accommodate in the 24 hours that we have. Right, I think this is the fundamental change that is happening, uh, and that will definitely impact what we call today as so the products that we are going to get for evaluation, or the way we will be wanting to do evaluation. And that is where I said about flexibility for the for the sensory expert and the practitioners of sensory, and be able to evolve and see how you can do this. As you rightly pointed out, Sandeep, yes, when we started work on Safola Masala Oats way back in 2008 9, that time plain oats was there, but plain oats is a Western concept. As such, we know, and the food industry and all of us know that certain Western formats takes really long to get adapted in India, right? And again, as, as I say, things have changed. Today, it would take slightly lesser time versus what it took maybe in the 90s. So conflicts took, we all know those case studies, how long conflicts have taken to kind of get adopted into Indian breakfast and stuff like that. So oats similarly was a Western concept. What we had in India to an extent was plain oats, predominantly in one of the state in the south. Right, so that was what we had. Uh, a lot of published information and data around oats. When we check the Journal of Sensory Science, Food Quality Preference, and lot of this, where there's lot of interesting articles that get published on sensory, we were getting on plain oats, right? And the one fundamental difference is that plain oats, or to an extent, some flavor in plain oats would be a little vanilla or a strawberry at the most, right? Here we were trying to look at an innovation, which was oats, but it was not sweet, it was not plain, it was flavored heavily with masala. Uh, Conventionally, oats was cooked in milk. Here we are saying we have to cook it in water, right? And the entire consumption was a hot consumption. So the porridge of oats in the construct of sensory was very different to what we were getting into, right? So none of the spiders of plain oats or what was getting cooked in milk could be superimposed or taken for any reference out over here. Extremely challenging, but I think it opened up a great opportunity for all of us to be very creative, uh, right? And pushed and allowed us to push to see what is the best that we can do. Okay, so working closely with also our partners in flavors, the flavor houses, and the vendors, and along with them crafting what could be the attributes. And there was a lot of to and fro that happened, because see, new to the market, new to a consumer. So even the consumer sometimes don't know what to check in that, right? Because too early to go to the consumer, because no one knows what flavor or what masala oats is and how should it be also.
Yeah.
right? So what you would get from the consumers was only one plain answer: आपको अच्छा लगा, नहीं अच्छा लगा. That's it, right? But here is where the sensory scientists, the consumer scientists, and the behavioral scientists, they are not different, and the formulation scientists, the marketeer, they are not different individuals. One individual is wearing different hats, right? And each one of us sitting there listening is actually trying to see why is that response coming by lot of observation. Why is that response coming? Why is that individual saying that um, it is अच्छा लगा, and why is that individual saying it is not अच्छा लगा, right? And that is where you kind of go do a lot of to and fro to see, okay, if this was not अच्छा लगा, what was it when I have put it down on a scale, on a sensory? Maybe the 4 marking of saltiness is a not अच्छा लगा over here,
Hmm.
right? And something which is very अच्छा लगा also, बहुत अच्छा लगा मुझे something, and you a lot of observation studies. Then you go back and check, and I think it's a lot of evolution that happened, extremely challenging, but yes, a lot of patience, and yeah. But I think the output and the kind of success that that innovation today has in the market, and this, I think that all the investment on sensory that went into that organization, allowing it to do it, I think it was absolutely well, because that laid the foundation for that entire work on that innovation. Another thing which becomes also critical over here is, I would want to extend this thought, is in foods. While it's another variant, but that another flavor is product by itself and a different product, right? So it has to be treated in that manner. While you take some learnings from here, but the experience of something which is a vegetable flavor, is very different than what someone would taste as maybe masala coriander as one of the flavors.
In fact, two things on this. Not nothing on your answer. Your answer is great. But two thoughts on this. One, uh, a lot of learnings for sensory science comes from Americans and the Brits, and to some extent French. Uh, but this is something which what you have done and what your team has done is working on new to the world category. When we are talking, high tea or brunch, there are examples worldwide that they exist for a high tea and a brunch. But when you talk of masala oats, there is nothing. It's a completely new to the world category, and I sincerely think that you should get your team and as you're a self-acclaimed nerd. Uh, Write a paper and present it at Pangborn, because this is the knowledge we should be giving back to the Brits and Americans, saying, look, when you do a work on new to the world category, where there are no norms, where there are no validated data set somewhere in the world, have to use innovation, you have to use design thinking, behavioral science to think what's actually going to work. And Sensory can still lead on that or be an thing. Pangborn is something which you should go and present that, and I think they will gladly accept the paper, because this kind of work, I've seen a lot of Pangborn papers. I've not seen anything like this at all.
And this is not to say that it was a journey or a time which was always win 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 win. No, 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 no. We had many, going back to drawing board, going back to square one, disappointments, yeah, and all the human emotions that happen within the team and all of that. But the thing is, eventually as a team, and it's not just one team, it is a formulation team. It is, like I said, the partners, the marketing team, and the sensory team, the CTI team, the CMI team. It's a teamwork. uh, yeah, but I think it works.
And there are business targets and there are launch dates. And
Of
so,
course, of course. And there are networks which are non-negotiables, and then there are AOPs, and everything of it is there.
sure. No, but I sincerely think that you should write the paper. And if I can help in writing the paper, I'm happy to help in writing the paper. But it's a knowledge because not everybody, actually, not too many people in sensory or even in market research get to work on new to the world categories. When I do something which has been done in US, I have a benchmark. I know what I'm talking about. Okay, it will change a bit in India, but it won't change 80%. It will change maybe 20%. But when you do new to the world category, that's by itself. So how do you think now with the launch of masala oats and all, what's the place on the board or on the table for sensory or sensory consumer insights at where you are? What importance does sensory consumer insights gets in product development innovation at according to you in the company?
So I think it's a great place to be, right? So like I mentioned, Marico as an organization has been very pro innovation, right? And the right balance of risk taking, um, and also ensuring that the innovation lands in a manner that really delights the consumer, and gives it the value that the consumer is seeking. I think these are the bottom line principles that have been the guardrails or the guiding principles for all innovations in Marico, right? And because that is the fundamental belief, the value itself is around the values of Marico itself is around consumer centricity, right? And that's a very key value that is, you see that across the organization. So when you have consumer centricity as the value, uh, the role of the functions which are anchoring this front facing consumer, whether it is CTI, whether it is CMI, whether it is the analytics team, the data science team, they have a great place, and they are an integral part of the entire NPD network, and points are taken, and they are well adopted, and there's very great want to listen kind of attitude towards the consumer teams. And if I can talk about the other side of this aspect that you have brought to the discussion, is it also is about what you bring on the table, right? Right. So there are always seats on the table, right? So whether you're carrying a Christmas turkey, right, to the guests that are there, that's also very critical to me. Right. So, what value are we as practitioners of sensory or practitioners of CTI or the insights function? What are we bringing to the business? How are we enabling? So, enabling the entire decision making process. I think with those things, why would you not have a seat on the table? Of course, there would be lot many seats and firm seats, right? So, definitely.
Shruti?
Yeah. So I think this is like the last questions. Yeah. So Shilpa, like, people still don't know about much about sensory, or like they still are thinking. And when it comes to career, people do try to get the easiest option, to, yeah, I'm gonna get something that have, like, I'm gonna get more money or that, which is respectable, like this is normal. But what would you give an advice? What advice would you give to someone who wants to be part of, like, wants to experiment sensory, and like, how what advice would you give to a fresher who wants to, have a career in FMCG or consumer behavior?
Okay, so Let me little flip this question. Very important question. Very important question. So there are some myths around this entire sensory, and you all have been in this world, in this subject and arena for a very long time. Also, I'm referring to Sandeep and Shruti because you see your peer set who how
Yeah.
they think about this subject, and I think there are some myths which we all are aware of. It's time consuming. It's expensive,
Yeah.
right? Some of the thing, and these are the myths carried by the users. Like in consumer world, we have broadly the users and we have the aware non-trialist. Okay, so the users of sensory and the aware non-trialists of sensory, by and large, these are the two myths, uh, right? For some of the aware non-trialists, color, fragrance, and appearance, sensory ho gaya, right?
Hmm.
That we do it.
Yeah.
Right, you like blue, you like yellow, you like this. Number of people who out of 20, number of people who like 20 yellow, number of people who like blue, mean average. Okay, so this is the color. Okay,
Hmm.
so that these are the myths. Again, I'm saying with due respect, and it is all about awareness. Yeah, so and that is the role that we practitioners have to play. Okay, so that is one. And to again some aware non-trialists, it is for big organizations, it is for big brands, it is for one who want to launch big things, uh, right? That is one. And for the one who are users, some hardcore users, okay, this has been always there, so we know this, and so we'll continue with it. Not partially right, yes, and that is how it should be because learnings have to be leveraged. Okay. Uh, so there is this technical evaluation, then there is this sensory assessments, and then there is a consumer evaluation. Consumer this. Okay, so technical gives your technical. Sensory is what we are trying to simplify for the world to understand, and consumer is about perception and likability,
Hmm.
right? And many a times we hear responses, we have to really dig hard to understand why laddering techniques, bolo why, till we come to a point where we say, okay, chalo, we feel that we share perception, and therefore we look at the scores and PI and you know the mean
Shilpa,
and kind of.
we actually lost you for a second over there. Can you repeat your last line, please?
Yeah, so I was saying about, so consumer is about likability and perception. Okay, so, and we try to ask questions to understand the whys and why, and to up to a level where many a times us we feel that okay, we have reached to a point where we probably understand the answer, and let's close it. Yeah, so to me, and because I've been in the role of anchoring the sensory and the consumer, what has helped me is because of a robust understanding of sensory is whereby understanding of consumer has been a lot more sharper and better, and vice versa, because you are able to hear consumer well, you are able to better devise protocols or methodologies for sensory assessment better, right? And that is how I look at the two things. So imagine a medical world. I mean, an analogy which could sound a little off what we are talking about, but imagine the world of medical science or medical world where there are surgeons, practitioners, treatments, hospitals, specialists, everything, uh, and then there is no pathology lab. Okay, I will check the temperature and I will perhaps give the first paracetamol. But what happens after that? Uh, right. So I think sensory is that role, which is an enabler, which is maybe at a little back, but it's a very strong enabler to decide your entire strategy, line of treatment, what is the kind of risk that you're getting into, how you can mitigate the risk, to how much extent, how can you do the best allocation of your prototypes, and lot more. But as sensory practitioners, I think we have a lot of scope to open up and unlock to the world the kind of opportunities that can be done with it. So definitely, and this is therefore a career which can definitely be looked with a very different lens, right? End of the day, money, remuneration, everything is linked with the value that you bring to the business, right? And that's how the cycle flows. So if you have heard about synesthesia marketing, okay, there's a synesthesia effect of cross modal sensory experiences, and today we are living in a world where we are all seekers and givers of experience. Okay, the money that we put for anything is for experience, right? Now experience is about sensations, okay, and sensations is about sensory, and sensations are not captured with instruments, right? So the best example that comes to my mind is this entire cooling oil category. That's perhaps cooling hair oil. That's perhaps the only category which exists in this country. And look at the kind of category that it is. You cannot measure a sensation of cooling on a pH meter or anything for that matter, right? It has to be done on a sensory, what we call it, panel, but it has to be created, and these are therefore sensory insights which throw up huge business opportunities if they are correctly spotted, trusted, and crafted into a business proposition. So I think there's lots and lots that can be done. It is for us to look at it creatively and kind of look at it beyond that. I'm looking at panels, right? So that 5.5 marked on a scale has to tell the sensory scientist some articulation, and not look at it like a number. Because see, when you're talking to a consumer in a qualitative or a quantitative, it is a person who's responding. But in a sensory assessment, the product is talking to you to tell you what am I, right? And are we listening to that product to tell what am I, what can I do, what can I not do, right?
Yeah.
So that each number, I think, if someone has a fascination and this to look at it in that manner, if you like talking to numbers in that manner or scales, I think you just unlock altogether new career which
Yeah,
will always be there.
absolutely. That is true. That was really insightful. Thank you, Shilpa. And Sandeep, I think
No, thank you so much, Shilpa.
yes,
Very
we're gonna
insightful.
wrap this episode.
Learning for me,
Yeah.
definitely.
Thank you so much. It has been a real pleasure talking to Sandeep, you and Shruti, both of you. It gave me also a opportunity to think and kind of look at things differently. The way Shruti was asking me these questions, so I'm really happy to be here and share my learnings with you.
Yep.
Thank
So
you.
thank you so much, and let this cult only grow.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Shilpa.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for being part of our podcast. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. And if you like to know more about Sensory, please comment below. Till then, stay tuned for more episode of Sensory Moments.